Hi, I'm Blythe Stevens, MFA, Bliss Catalyst, and creator of A Blythe Coach, dance education and coaching to move through life with balance, grace, and power. I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest on the podcast today, a good friend of mine and fellow dancer, Matthew Donnell. We met at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts back in the day, and I'm super pumped to share with you what all he has been up to since those times. So I'm going to share a little bit of Matthew's bio with you and then let him tell you a little bit more about the work that he's currently doing and with whom. Matthew C. Donnell, a native of Mount Airy, North Carolina, received his formal dance training from the University of North Carolina School of the Arts, UNCSA, and the Rock School. Matthew danced with the Kansas City Ballet, performing soloist and principal roles by the Great Ballet and contemporary masters. Critically acclaimed, the Kansas City Star named Matthew 30 Under 30 Artist to Watch. Dancing has taken him to stages all over the world, including the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., performing with Young Tansama in Austria, and entertaining the troops at Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, Japan. Additionally, Mr. Donnell is an actor, singer, filmmaker, physical comedian, clown, and a licensed minister. His theater credits include Kansas City Starlight Theater, Kansas City New Theater, Houston Theater Under the Stars, and the New York Musical Festival. With partner Alana Niehoff, he wrote, produced, and performed in his one-man clown physical comedy show, The Chapeau Show, in New York City, benefiting Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. His short film series, The Adventures of Jim, has been screened in film festivals on the East and West Coasts, and he's a former member of the board of directors for American Guild of Musical Artists, the union that represents ballet and opera performers. And there is so much more that is notable, and I'm very excited to share that with you in this conversation. So here is Matthew. So nice to see you too. It's so nice to see you after I was thinking, oh, I've gotten to see you more recently than most people from those days from high school, but it's still been a number of years since
It
I caught
hasn't.
up with you in North Carolina. You don't live there anymore.
Our first year there, I think you got to come through and see the studio when we were briefly when we
Yeah. Yeah, I
so
was still relatively fresh, which was cool because I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to do a road trip. And then
yeah.
there's actually, because most people, I mean, no one else who we knew is still there, at least in Winston-Salem. So that was cool to
Yeah.
connect. Yeah. So,
Makes me sound way more
cool.
impressive than I actually am.
Isn't it so fun the way your bio could do that?
I
I
know it's like
mean, you are very accomplished, but it is fun to see it all written out. You're like, dang.
recently heard I appreciated an interview on NPR with a gentleman that was talking about I forget what he was talking about exactly, but talked about how he on those days where he feels really low, he sometimes will Google himself, not out of vanity, just to remember that, oh, I have done a couple things, and, I am an expert in what I'm talking about. I would never I'm not an expert, but I appreciate it, and I took from what he said, and it gave me 5 minutes of self-esteem. So
Yes, yes. I have done some things, but
yeah.
even that have been successful. So then could you summarize what is the work that you're now doing and who do you do it with?
I am now a faculty member of Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet that was founded a little over 50 years ago by Marcia Dale Weary, who passed a couple years ago. But it's a pretty special place that has trained, really focusing on training dancers from the ground up in this small area of Central Pennsylvania. So we adhere to the syllabus that she created, and and it's really remarkable. I mean, she was a dancer who, when she went to New York, discovered that she had not gotten sufficient training to become a professional and was shot down for it. And she never wanted another child to have that experience, whether they became a professional or not. So she devoted her life to the art of teaching, to make sure that kids, whether they wanted to be a professional or not, would have the tools that they needed. And her school started in a barn, and now it's in a much larger building, and I feel very lucky to have gotten to be. I was one of her last 2 or 3 teachers that she hired before she passed, along with our current artistic director, Darla Hoover. who
Oh.
is now going to be the chairman of faculty at the School of American Ballet.
I just saw that too. Impressive.
So happy. It's amazing to be so happy and so sad at the same time, you know. But I'd be remiss if I didn't, you know, just shout her praises to the
Mhm.
heavens.
Yes.
I feel very lucky for however long in my life it lasts to have been chosen by Marcia Dale Weary and Darla Hoover to get to teach these beautiful young children.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome to see that that's been an opportunity that you can take advantage of. And I remember even back in the day that CPYB was like a known name. And now I think about it and you're like, yeah, right. Like in this random little town in, in Pennsylvania, that's really something that it could stand among,
Wow.
schools in New York and
I
everywhere
mean,
else.
and so many dancers that have gone on all over the world, and you know, are the the artistic director of New York City Ballet is from CPYB, Jonathan Stafford. You know, I mean, so it's just
Right.
it's where, you know, so I feel lucky to have been, you know, trained at University of North Carolina School of the Arts and have had to come from a place where dancers have gone all over the world, and to find myself once again in a place such as that, and now on the other side of the table, so to speak, teaching. It just, I don't know, I'm very lucky, and so thanks for the opportunity to share that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so pleased. It's just so fun to think at this stage in our career that I'm like, wow, there's so many people that I want to interview now, like really out of my own personal curiosity about how has it been for you? And it's so cool to observe from a distance, but it's also cool to hear what that experience has actually been like. No matter what you've gone on to do. Of course, you've gone on to do the actual thing that we train to do, which is to dance professionally and to continue with that. But something else that I admire about your work is that you balance a lot of different things sort of I wouldn't, maybe not simultaneously. You can tell me how you do it. A lot of
Moments in time.
yeah. Not all at the same time, not in the same moment.
I don't know that, were you to talk to my wife, I don't know if she would necessarily say that I balance it all very well, but I definitely have lots of interests. That's the truth of it. I've I actually really struggle with. I used to joke around because, you know, as in my clowning side of my life that you witnessed, because you used to see me ride my unicycle all over campus.
Unicycling. Hmm.
But in that part of my life, I used to joke around that I had all these toys, all these juggling toys that I could do a little bit. And so that whole jack of all trades, master of none, that's kind of how I feel. And that's, if I'm honest, that's a huge insecurity of mine. So I think that what I may project into the world it's all, that's where the balance is. It's like, how do I try to be as good as I can at what I'm doing, while at the same time I'm feeling like, gosh, I know that there's so many people that are better teachers. I know that there's so many people that are better clowns. I know there's so many people that are better dancers. And then you can let yourself go. So what I try to do is I try to flip that around and go, chill out, look at, you know, you might not be able to juggle 5, but you can juggle 3, you know, and that's kind of how it is. It is a juggling act, you know, life. And because I love teaching, and I love and miss performing. And at the same time, I love my family. And that's the newest thing. Then that is
Hmm.
that's the hardest and most rewarding role I've ever played. And that is so cliche, and everybody and their uncle says it. But it's true. And I'm discovering it daily, and it's changing my perspective a lot. So, but yeah, no, I don't know. I've always had all these different things that I've wanted to do. I always wanted to write a book, and and I would, in my lonely youth, would write romantic poetry that was I kept all those things because they're so embarrassing. And yeah, at one point during the pandemic, a friend of mine is a very, very, I say friend because, like, why not? If you have famous people in your life, even if they're acquaintances, why not, you know, just
Y'all are
completely,
tight.
is an extremely published poet, and I joked around in the pandemic. I said, I'm gonna maybe just like recite one poem a day from my archives and not say who it's by. And just see, I never got around to it. It's like, change a diaper, keep a human alive, or have this completely, narcissistic experience on social media that I'm only going to think is funny. So
this was by Anonymous. Yeah, more ideas than you actually have the bandwidth for, but
and that's the whole thing. I turned 40 last year, and I used to think when people talk about midlife crisis, how stupid that was and how weird that it's so accurate, because all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I don't have enough time. I got to get it all done. What's going on? And it's really hard to just hone in on a couple of things. But I think now at this point in my life, it's time to do that, just like really hone in on the things that are important. And unfortunately, that changes every day in my brain. Scary place.
Yeah, family at the top, but then what comes next? What comes next? Thank you so much for making the time during the holiday season too to catch up. I guess there's no less nutty time, so. But no, I appreciate.
I apologize that I had to cancel the first time, so I'm glad that this worked out.
Totally fine. It all works out in divine timing, and that's so cool that it was because I thought, oh, you were helping produce the Nutcracker, but I now see that you were in the Nutcracker. Again.
Yeah, no, which is I love being in the Nutcracker. It's my favorite.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool that you got to play Mother Ginger.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten to play her. I got to play her once in North Carolina in 2016, I think, but this was my first time playing her on stilts in 21 years. So that was
since we were half our age.
Thanks for doing that. I appreciate that.
But it's so funny because it's something that didn't even occur to me, like, oh yeah, that part is often played on stilts, and how horrifying must that be?
And horrifying for little kids too.
Yes, don't step on the children, right?
I did step on children, and I'm not gonna lie, I get a little bit of a gleeful hee hee hee, because they come out and they're like, "You stepped on me," but they wear it like a badge of honor, because the whole time they see me practicing, like, "I don't want to get stepped on. I don't want to get stepped on," and then when they get that stepped on, it's not like I grind their foot or something. They come out,
oops, there's something there.
It was me. And I was like, "I'm so sorry." Like, no, it's so cool. I'm like, "Okay, your foot, not mine."
It's not like you can see them. So.
No. It's, this year, because of distancing incapabilities or limitations, there were only 4 kids under the dress, which was instead of 8, and that helped a lot because they were taller this year. So I was grateful for that. Your little toes were grateful for that too.
Yes, not so scrunched under there. So fun. I've been seeing people posting about being, party parents and things, and the Nutcracker too. And I'm like, ooh, I want to do that. But I'm excited. It looks like I'm going to be playing the Queen in one of my studio's performances of Swan Lake coming up this spring.
Oh, I want to play the Queen in Swan Lake. That's awesome. How fun is that?
Yeah, I was like, ooh, I'm actually surprising myself how gleeful I feel about this opportunity to do a character role.
It'll be a gateway drug, because then next you'll be Queen, and then you're going to want to do Caraboss, and then, it's just...
Yeah, right? Then I'm going to want to get into the evil roles.
That's where the fun is.
So cool. I wanted to hear a little bit more about that process of writing the book for you. Now I know that your writing history goes way back, even creative writing, but what spurred or catalyzed that particular book being the one that's now out there in the world?
Well, everything sort of goes back to ballet for me. And when I was a little kid, my first Nutcracker, I think I was 12, and I fell in love with the role of Herr Drosselmeier, and I wanted to be Drosselmeier, and the people that played that role at the School of the Arts, I just looked up to them, and one of them was an actor who had transitioned into ballet. And so I thought, ooh, that's cool, because I was a dancer that wanted to transition to acting someday, and I didn't know you could do both. And so I would try to race around with my cape around my legs like the Drosselmeier did in that production. And I just started imagining being Drosselmeier. And then the opportunity arose early in my career to take on that role. And so I'd say for about 8 or 9 years at of my 10 at Kansas City Ballet, I played that part. And I was coached by Todd Bolender, who was a legendary dancer for George Balanchine. So I felt like I was getting coached, and I was the last person he coached in that, one of the last people he coached in that. And I got to be, I'm starting to see a pattern. I got to be the last of lots of people's things, which makes me feel responsibility there, but gave me these different visualizations. And so I created backstory for myself of what this person was. And then when I was living in New York, and after I'd retired from dancing, I sat down, and I was getting really burned out from auditioning, because, you know, ballet is such that, hey, I can do 5 pirouettes. Yeah, show me. Oh, you got the job. All right. A lot of times, especially as a guy. And it's much more challenging now because there's so many good dancers. Theater is, it was once explained to me that if you're a casting director and you have a vision in your mind of what Cinderella looks like, you can wait until she walks in the door. It doesn't matter how many hundreds of thousands of people, you can wait until she walks in the door. So I wasn't getting cast a lot in things, and I couldn't understand. I was getting really burned out because I didn't have a creative outlet. And I just sat down one day and wrote, I wonder what Drosselmeier would be like as a little boy, you know, and based on the things that I had put into my character, I created the story, and I read it to a buddy of mine, and he was like, and he said, Matthew, you should turn this into a book. And I said, I would love to. And it took 7 years, but I finally ended up in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and saw on Facebook that there was a small, because I mean, I had gotten rejected from every publisher agent that you could. And I saw that there was this small, they're not small to me, but this not-for-profit organization that their mission is to support writers, artists, and musicians financially. And I contacted them, and I said, I would love to get this book published, and I don't want to publish it myself. And they said, well, basically they would publish a book to sell the book to help fund, you know, people who are struggling and people who needed assistance. I was like, I can get on board with that. I just want this book out there. And they said, well, there's another person. I think we have other projects. I said, what if I can raise the money? I don't want to touch the money. I don't want it, but what if I can raise the money? And so I did a GoFundMe in honor of this, because I was like, the biggest thing for me was to, for some reason in my mind, I didn't know much about self-publishing, but I just knew that my first book, for my ego, I wanted somebody else to publish it, because to me that meant somebody saw what I had done enough to take it on. And again, 100% ego. I've since learned that there is nothing wrong with self-publishing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, but to me, like in my brain of uneducated mess. So in a month we over-raised, and so and it got published, and that was the journey. So it felt like a lifetime, and now it's been 2 years. The sequel, because it's supposed to be a series, was supposed to be released last year. It's really hard to release a book that you haven't written.
Pretty tough. That's a good piece of advice right there. A little nugget of gold for you.
Want to write, and I don't have any deals in the work for that to even be published yet. So that's it was kind of my labor of love, and I love that I've been able to, that it's gone, you know, there's people have it in different corners of the world, and it's in a small way it's helped support people in need. And I was really happy my wife and I did a show before I left New York that was just to help me like put clown material out there. And it was really important. I had lots of friends that would go, come see me in this cabaret. And it was always like, you pay a cover fee, and then there's a 2-drink minimum, and then the artist doesn't get any of the money anyway. And I was like, and you'll hear a bunch of people sing that you don't know, and you went for your one friend. And I was like, if I am asking people to come and basically watch me workshop something that could suck. I would rather give it away right now. I believe artists are worth being paid for their work, but and then I was like, no, I want to make some money off of it, but I don't want to keep it. So I donated that to Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. And so it was sort of a win-win. I didn't feel bad for having people come and give $10 in case I sucked. And that's kind of how I felt with the book too. It's like, I know some people like it, but I also know it's a very niche thing. Like if you're not a big old fan of dance and the Nutcracker, you might not know what this is. And the cover and everything that we designed was it's designed to give the ta-da, this is about the Nutcracker at the end of the book. So so that was, so now and fortunately I don't think it did suck. So that's and people seem to enjoy it. So but I at some point in my career I'd like to feel once again like I used to as a dancer, that what I do is, or what I create is maybe something that's worth paying me for. But then to bring that full circle again is, I guess that's where teaching is for me now. And it's a weird place to be as a performer, because I still very much feel like a performer, even if I only do, Mother Ginger a couple of times in a season, or Drosselmeier a couple of times in a season. I feel very much that's my DNA. But now it's time to give that away to other people. And you kind of feel like you're holding on to it, your favorite toy, and you don't want to share it, but yet you need to. Have fun editing this. Welcome to the ramble that is my life.
It's always like this though.
Because as dancers, and especially as dancers, we don't receive a lot of media training and PR training, so to have an interview, like I'll out myself on that. Like when my wife coached me before I did an interview about the book, and she coached me because at Radio City, they have incredible PR training.
Yes.
They have to get their things out in 30 seconds before they take that, Times Square kick line. And, so I have lots to learn.
I was thinking about that when you shared that, that little clip from, what is it, ABC or whatever it is, major media outlet of the Rockets, which of course I watch every year all the time. It's a family tradition, absolutely. But thinking about it through that lens of, okay, you've got 15 seconds or something to say something meaningful about what you're doing as a dancer. It was really impressive to think about it, and then go dance. It's like, the stress. It's incredible.
Fortunately, there are people that know how to teach people how to do that. And by gum, I'm going to learn how to do that someday.
Learn it. That's right. We're going to learn how to say succinct, profound sound bites. But yes, this is more of a rambling type of show. And
I really enjoy listening to your Nutcracker special.
Oh, that's part of the fun, though, actually, that I have re-listening to it and editing it in a way that I hope is a little bit more listenable, and also getting the nuggets again out of what we actually said, because I'll forget some of the really profound things that guests will say, and I'll get to be like, oh yeah, and then I can pull that out in the blog, and I can pull that out in promoting it and little clips and things that are really cool. So I just have faith that that's going to happen.
A very entertaining ramble, and if people see what this, if people can visualize when listening the snowman blazer that I'm wearing,
Yes, exactly. It is too bad if you're not listening to or not seeing this on video, because it is something special to behold. But yeah, it's not such a formal, structured situation, but I'm having so much fun just being like, this is my show, this is my podcast, this is my show. We can talk about whatever we want to. And some people are finding value in that, so it's great.
That's really wonderful, and I applaud you for doing that.
Thank you. It's getting more comfortable too. I'm still get a little sweaty. I'm like, oh, it's actually easier doing this by myself when I'm all scripted than when I'm trying to interact with a real live human being, even one whose work I love and appreciate. Right. But coming back to the work, I wanted to maybe bring us back a little bit to, because that's another thing that as an appreciator of your work and everything that you do is something that you, I think, handle with a lot of grace, is a transparency, but also grace in that trying all these things, putting yourself out there, auditioning 10 million times, which of course you have to do as a dancer. I love how you share that video of yourself falling on stage, which is such a beautiful, amazing, amazing moment. But I think it really, like, it's funny to laugh at, but then also like all of these things point to incredible resiliency and ability to sort of bounce back and keep putting yourself out there. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to that.
Resiliency. Oy, 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 oy. I kind of just, I don't know any other way to be, you know. I so where you might so kindly say refer to that as resilience, it's just kind of survival, you know. I'm also very open. I didn't, you know, as a dancer, I had to work really hard because I have feet that were designed to be doorstops, and I have the flexibility of a carrot, naturally. And so, thing that I worked for, I realized that everybody as a dancer that quote makes it whatever making it the definition of that is, because I think that's a very fluid definition. Um, Everybody works hard, you know, as a dancer. I don't care what, from a recreational dance school to a professional track dance school, there's hard work. And so I didn't come by any of that easily. So every step was, I want to see what's the next thing. How much further can I get? Can I become a professional? I didn't get into ABT. All my friends are getting into ABT. What the hell? I didn't get, you know, like, what do you mean? You know, and I had to just figure out how to, if I wanted to, I knew I wanted to eat because I like to eat. And I knew that you had to make money in order to do that. And I wanted to perform. And I also knew that you don't make a lot of money performing. So if you want to eat, you better show up and you better make it happen. And oh, you fell on your ass. If you can't laugh at that, then there's a real problem, you know, like, so why not show everybody that you fell on your butt in front of the, you know, 2,000 people? Because now I can, when my students fall on stage and it's the worst moment of their life, I can go, oh, careful, you should just be happy I didn't catch that on video, because it would have been, you would have been famous. And then while they're crying about their fall, they're also laughing and learning that it's, you can get up. Like, I told the dancer backstage, I was like, you know, she was really upset because she tripped or slipped or fallen or something. I said, you're not going to remember that. You're going to remember the double pirouette that you nailed. Like, and you're going to remember how exciting that felt. And I said, you can remember that if you choose to remember that, you know, and as a negative, or you can go, ah, and I know that's hard too, because again, I will always point back to my, you know, male privilege as a male dancer. I think it's slowly, it'll never get there in my lifetime, but it's slowly, you know, with all the steps that we've taken towards, you know, or that, no, that we've taken, that we are taking towards equality, that I hope to be a part of. It may be getting a little tiny speck of light better, but it's still very much a boys' club in ballet. And I was able to take full advantage of that. And I don't hide that. So I know that when I'm sharing something that was, I was able to laugh at because I fell, to a young lady who sees that as the end of her career and she's going to get judged, there's deep scars that have made that, put that in her mind that I didn't have to deal with. The guy falls, oh, that's funny. The girl falls, well, she must suck. No, she was dancing on point. You know, like, I was dancing on flat, doing a character number. Yeah, like, so let's give them some grace, you know. So resilience, I, for myself, it's just a matter of, I wanted to be able to eat. You know, and just find things that you love, and if you don't love what you're doing, quit.
Yeah.
And move on to the next thing. And that's where the resiliency comes in that long-winded thing. Have fun editing. I think that's going to be my soundbite for you the whole time.
Have fun editing this. Good luck. That's great though, because I was going to ask, how can we impart that to students as well? How do you share that? Because I think it can be easy from the point of view of students or audience or larger sense of audience, once you've again made it in whatever sense that is, whatever you've done the thing that you intended to do, it can be easy to see, but that was easy for you because of this, because of that, because of this privilege and that privilege. And like, what? It may be easier for them for some, but it's not easy for anybody. There was definitely like plenty of hurdles and plenty of challenges, and we can forget those ourselves too.
Absolutely. And that to use my fall, you'll note that there is more dance that comes after that I have not put on YouTube, because like I was shaken, I got up but I mean, it was followed by a series of pirouettes that were supposed to be on center. Well, I had fallen and I was not on center, so I had to do the first set of pirouettes here, and then I had them jump over to the next set, and then it was the choreography culminates in 4 little girls making a line and doing a leapfrog over these girls, and they're not little, they were teenagers, where you're doing toe touches. I was never good at those in place. Remember, flexibility of carrot. And so on this thing, after I already have the yips from falling, I do 3 toe touches and what the heck little hoop-de-doo over the last one. I was like, this is over. And then, wait, there's more. There's 4 on-point cartwheels at the end of it. My cartwheels start, and then they end up looking like I'm doing, I used to call my leapfrogs geriatric jumping jacks. The cartwheels look like the last cartwheel, the legs go out towards the audience, not over my head. I mean, it's just, these are, maybe someday, maybe that'll be my true test of humility to share the entire video. And but I don't know if I'm ready for that yet.
Yeah, you didn't get to just leave the stage at that point.
I still understand that it is, it's easy for me to laugh at that. It happened in 2009, and I was even able to laugh at it right after because I was trying so hard to transition. But in the moment, it was kind of scary, and it took me a minute to get back on the horse in the subsequent shows of doing that. Because you're always afraid you're going to fall. Falling is not fun, even if it may be. You just hurt something, So,
yeah. Yeah, falling's not fun, but yeah, injury is even worse, which is, the real fear there. Yeah, falling, but then falling and hurting yourself. Yeah, I remember having I have a tricky knee since way back, and I remember having a little bobble in the middle of Waltz of the Flowers, and and it was like certainly not anything that would be perceptible to anyone else outside of my body, but being super shaken up for the whole rest of it, like, oh gosh, I've lost stability, what's going to happen on this next part, and I can't even remember the choreography now.
I'll share a story that to commiserate with that. I was doing Bugle Boy in Paul Taylor's Company B, and which is the hardest variation I've ever done as far as jump. It's all jumping. And the very final moment, I'm going straight down stage doing this snapping, kicking movement, which is really, just character dance. It's really fun. But my knee bobbled, and that was the moment where I remembered I hadn't eaten sufficiently that day.
You're on stage. You're like, "Ooh, I should have eaten."
I should have eaten, because you just almost blew a knee because you were shaky and you're doing the hardest variation that this 3-minute solo or whatever. And so like I get that, and nobody knows it, but you know it, and it's like it's everything. And then that's what you remember. Like you remember that moment of Waltz of the Flowers, right? Like
yes. Yeah, it's practically the only thing I remember about performing that entire that entire run of shows was being like, ah.
Oh, gosh.
It's funny to think about that fear and sense of danger in dancing, but then when you can sometimes not have that on stage too. I remember that being a huge relief. This will probably have to cut all of this because this is this is a tangent. But I was thinking about the operetta that we did.
I was going to ask if you remember that.
Oh my God, do I remember that? It's still one of my favorite shows ever.
That was my first professional gig.
Yeah, it was a paid gig, which was incredible. We were not even out on the loose yet. And so it was a huge confidence booster, but then also being like transported as a dancer out of the usual environment into an environment where there's candy backstage and everybody's like laughing and joking and having fun and like making sure that their voices are in condition. And yeah, I remember we had to sing too, and that was like, what?
Which girl were you? I know those.
Juju.
Oh yeah.
Low, low, do, do, juju, frou, frou.
For Aiden the other day, I was doing the tambourine number because I still remember that whole thing that the chorus did that I didn't do, but I thought it was so much fun. And Alana was like, "That's really good," and I was like, "Dottie Danner's choreography, not mine."
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we had some fun stories,
It
didn't
was,
we?
yeah, it was actually very involved what we did. We were dancing in every act, but I just didn't have that sense of like, ooh, this has got pressure on it for me that so many other things back then did. And
So
that was
much fun.
really a treat.
Yeah.
That was really a treat. Makes me want to be in another opera. Add that to the list of
Yeah.
5 million things we don't have time for.
Gosh, just to be unmasked and ugh,
Yes.
I
But
know.
I don't even know if we can go into all of this, but maybe just briefly, I was curious if there's any. We've shared some wisdom from your path and adventures so far, but we also have a shared sort of point of view, almost having come up at NCSA and having the same mentors there, and I know that's been super influential in your teaching and dancing too. So I was curious if there's any key pieces of the education that we received there that you brought forward.
You know, I still do some select combinations that were similar
Too.
to, you know, and I've recently, without going too much into it, had to like really question certain things as sad news comes to light about teachers that I really respected. And I've come to a little bit of a peace to remember that, you know what, the training that I got, the training doesn't, isn't negated by choices that they made. So I can still hold on to that. And that gave me a lot of peace moving forward as I teach. Because I was like, do I just combination because this was attributed to blah 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 blah? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, Matthew, they didn't invent ballet. They might have come up with that combination.
Yeah.
Combination taught you how to become a dancer, and it is my job to pass on the perfect parts of imperfect people. And that's what I try to do, because ballet has to be ballet, dance, any form of the arts has to be passed on. And I know that if somebody shared a laundry list of my flaws, I would be devastated. So it's, so I try to take the good, and those are the things, combinations, the way to learn how to stand on stage. Dancers get so stuck in the technical aspect of what we do, that one of the things that I was really taught by a teacher or two was the art of taking the reverence at the end of ballet class, and a lot of teachers don't choose to do that in American schools. You'll always see it in Russian schools, at the beginning and end of class.
Mm-hmm.
At least try to do it. Gosh, I'd say 99.9% of the time, I will always make sure that there's 30 seconds for at least bowing to stage right, stage left, bow, and then to
A
my
little port
student
de bras. Yeah.
finishing, and just finishing. And that is my chance to teach a little bit of stagecraft, of the artistry, because there are a lot of wonderful teachers out there, and there's a lot of wonderful teachers that are way better than me, that I would consider better than me, that train amazing technicians. But I think that what I pulled from my training, because I was not an amazing technician, I was fine, good enough, obviously, but was, how do you make these people artists? How do you make these people people? how do you, so I, so what I bring to the studio from my training at NCSA is the joy that I had at just being there surrounded by artists, and the teachers that I had that gave me the confidence that this unflexible, imperfect person could maybe have a career. It might not look like, and it didn't look like the career that I made up in my brain at age 13, but it far surpassed, because I was given the chance to royally muck up and then make something of that. And that's now what I sometimes, and some people don't like this. I know that some people wouldn't like this, that I sometimes I catch myself. I'm like, oh, you're giving more monologue than you're giving a combination maybe right now. But when I know that a dancer is going to get pounded with technique, as they should, in another class, I need them to learn how to be a person too, so that they don't go home at the end of the day and go, well, that sucked. I couldn't do that pirouette. I want them to go, you know what? Tomorrow's another day and that's going to be better, but I'm going to be a better person because I'm learning how to persevere. I'm learning how to be an artist. There are so many technicians out there. We need to make sure that we're training artists, and heck with that. Let's make sure we're training good people. Let's use this. Let's let our generation be the generation that made artists that people like, not just as social media personalities and influencers, but actually, I want to sit down and have a coffee with that person. I want to know about them. And so that's, once again, there's your ramble.
Yes, it's good. It's good.
That's what I took from school.
It's really something to grapple with, trying to keep the positive parts of the influences and the really important knowledge and experience, and then also realize that, yeah, not everything was maybe as it appeared from our limited perspective, but the history was so rich. That was really something that was super profound for me, and was always a part of my dance education too. Luckily, was my teacher from when I was really small really made a point to incorporate the history and all of that sort of thing, not just focusing only on technique, but then also to go and experience like a whole bunch of different voices from, yes, from even way back in the in the ballet history, and hear how it was done, and have combinations that sort of go back as well, and to have those cited to different sources that you can then look up in the history books was so profound too, more than any particular technique that I think we got. Yeah, I mean, that pretty much covers it. I was like, oh, I want to talk to you about character dance and history and this and that, but we can't really cover all of that.
I can quickly give you my experience with character, because that's something that I'm very passionate about, and I still have so much to learn. But I do teach character dance, and I'm so grateful that I get to teach it, because that's something that isn't taught a lot, and the current generation, a lot of them don't get it. So that's just my 10-second spiel on that. Like, I feel lucky the teachers I've had. My character certification that I dipped my toe in was from a teacher that I'd had over 20 years ago. So to reconnect with her, and she's a resource that I can call up and ask questions. It's so important, because, and again, how it gets passed on. Because if we don't do it, we'll die, and then it'll die, and then most dancers are going to get into a ballet company, and they're not going to do Odette Odile right out the gate. They're going to do character work. So
yeah, they're gonna mazurka their legs off first.
I don't hide that from the dancers, because I don't know if you remember, but we used to be like, oh, character class, that's the fun class that you can kind of mess around in. If it's not
skirt and
yeah. So my goal is to make sure that it's not a bird course, if you will, that you can just fly on through. I want them to, and as a result, it ends up being, since I only get an hour with these kids, it's very structured, and they repeat stuff a lot. But guess what? So do you in ballet. So when you can put those two together and draw that connection, later on, it's every once in a while somebody will graduate and be like, thanks for your character, Donnell. I'm like,
I really needed that. I thought that was fun, because it's like more it was a little bit more spicy, a little bit, yeah,
Which is your,
earthier, and
yeah.
definitely important, and the rhythmic things and all of that. And that's actually something that's super, like, one of the most painful losses, that sounds so dramatic, but of objects that I've lost in my life, it's actually my notebook where I would keep my corrections and
Oh,
stories and things and choreographies, and all of that is from those days actually. And one of my many moves has been lost. And I'm like, really, I cry inside every time I think about it, because it's not all, I mean, it's all in there, but it's not really all in.
for being one of those students that actually did that.
Yeah.
Not this guy. I wrote stuff down later on, but like that, see that's a huge testament to the type of person you are. Because I mean, we tell students to write things down all the time, and fortunately the smart ones do.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, some do. Some do. Yeah. Well,
good for you.
I can't take full credit for that. It was definitely from observing the friends of mine who were modern dancers,
Yep,
because
yep.
they were required to keep choreographic notes and notes from classes and things. And I was like, why don't we do that? I think
I
I'm
know.
gonna do that.
Things that I love about School of the Arts now, as opposed to when we were there, is that it's a little bit more, it's a lot more integrated than when we were there. You know, the ballet dancers taking contemporary and the contemporary dancers taking ballet like every day. Like, I mean, it's really remarkable what they have done. So, and you know, and to the and I think that lots of schools are starting to evolve that. You know, CPYB, which was a ballet school is a ballet school predominantly. You know, during the summer they get hip hop and modern.
Mhm.
And during the year now, my wife Alana teaches jazz. So this is,
Yeah,
well, it's like they're not training one trick ponies. You know, so it's
yeah,
I with the dance world, even though it takes its time sometimes, and it's hard to get. I hate this term, but they call, you know, how they call ballerinas trinas or whatever. It takes some convincing to get people to, but when they do, oh my gosh, they love it, and then they become employable. You
yes.
know.
Yes, I think that's a really nice little piece that I'm getting out of this conversation so far, as from the student perspective, is I think both you and I had a really clear sense of our hopeful destination, like I think all dancers do, of "Well, I'm going to go to ABT," you know, or New York City Ballet or whatever, Boston Ballet, San Francisco Ballet. But the reality is, there's probably a place for every dancer out there if you can open up your mind a little bit from that. Okay, I got to go for the most elite of the elite. And if I don't do that, then I am a failure. It's a very false dichotomy, right? Like either I'm making it at ABT, or
Yeah.
apparently there's no place in the dance world for me.
Yeah.
Um,
No, and it's and the thing that's beautiful of those dancers that have made it, say at ABT, since we're using that one, is like most of the ones that I met, because you know, and our friends that dance, they're very humble about it. They're like, this is my job. But I never had a single one of them look down on me for not dancing at ABT. You know, they were always proud of me for dancing at Kansas City Ballet, and now I love Kansas City Ballet, and I'm so proud of most of the things they've done. And the thing I am the biggest, you know, two things in my career that I will loudly proclaim that I'm proud of, and one is that fall. The other one is the successful unionization of Kansas City Ballet and making the call to get that ball rolling, because now the dancers since 2007-8, we already had a good contract, but we ensured that they would have a great contract for the history of that company, as long as the dancers, and that helped those dancers start learning to have a voice for themselves, and realizing that it wasn't just sticking it to the man or anything. No, it was learning to have a voice and have a conversation, because to be able to have most people will have a conversation with you, even managers, they'll have a conversation, because managers and directors want to have the best product. Dancers want to have the best product. Where's the disconnect? If you can put a mechanism in place that allows both parties to work together, It's so important. And I try to teach students that too. That's why my class doesn't go over. I end my class on time. I want the dancers to learn. I end my rehearsals on time. I want the dancers to learn that their time is valuable. And yes, I've gone over before. I'm not perfect.
Not never.
I start late because taking roll takes time, so I'm not hating on anybody who goes over, because there are things to be. But for me, for my choice, I want dancers to know their value, because we have value. We have value as non-dancers, so
Even non-dancers have value. But yeah, it's easy to think, oh, I'm expendable and therefore I deserve no rights and no quality of life in my professional
yeah,
experience. And that no one wins from that.
no, but yeah, no,
Awesome.
I've been very lucky, and
Yeah.
the people, yourself included, along the way, it's like, and you can just pick up.
It's so cool to still be connected. I'm really glad. Grateful for that. And thanks for sharing all of your stories. And I love it. Like I said, I wanted to share someone who is, you've gone a long way and are now in a position in the field of teaching dance to be passing that along, but also have all of these other perspectives and all of these other talents and interests. And it's just really appreciate the time and who you're being in the world with your students and family. And yeah,
It means a lot to me. I really appreciate that.
yeah.
My friend, when I shared your Nutcracker issue, my friend in the Netherlands had found that. He sent it to me.
Oh my gosh, no way.
He's another NCSA grad from
Yeah.
he US, but anyway,
Oh
he
my gosh.
danced for Het National, and then he's back in. But anyway, so
Fantastic. Yeah, I wanted to include this sort of with all that. I was like, nah, I'll just really it, but I'll still I'll drop a little word in there and maybe somebody someday. It's funny because I'm now used to producing things and I've been doing it long enough where no one was really paying attention. And just recently, people have started to pay attention. Just really exciting. But then it's like, oh no.
well, I appreciate you taking the time to just visit with me. It's been such a joy, and
Anytime.
us and keep doing what you're doing, because it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Man, I'll
Yes.
keep it up.
Thank you. You too. Thanks once again for listening. Definitely check out Matthew's website at matthewdonnell.com. That's MATTHEWDONNELL.com. You can also check out the Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet, where he's currently working. And for lots more links and resources and free goodies, I will also have those up on my website at ablifecoach.com. That's ABLYTHECOACH.com. See you next time. Sorry, I'm gonna edit that out.